Harry, you became a superstar almost before the term became used. I mean, you were one of the first real international superstars. How much of a challenge was that for you to deal with? I mean, you did not, certainly as a child, you weren't a superstar. You grew up poor, right? What were the challenges of all of a sudden realizing that you couldn't step foot on a street or out of a room in the world without people saying it's Harry Belafonte? How did you deal with that?
I think simply, first of all, I knew that I had to confront it, because I think anybody who is that disenfranchised or deprived spends most of their life trying to overcome the deprivation and trying to overcome the disenfranchisement. I had no problem with being thrust into the world of stardom because I never thought about it. I never, nowhere in my boyhood dreams was there the idea that one day I would be in Hollywood, one day I would be on Broadway, or one day I would be making an album that would be successful. I was quite content, as most blacks were in that period, to just practice my art form, and hopefully I'd find a constituency somewhere in the world, because the larger dream eluded all of us. As a matter of fact, I think in many ways young black people today perhaps have much more of a handle, because they do have Sidney Poitier, they do have Bill Cosby, they do have Richard Pryor, they do have Diana Ross, they do have a lot of, well, Harry Belafonte, they have role models to whom they can look, and somewhere they see this hope. In my youth, there were no such symbols. Sports was not integrated. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that Jackie Robinson was the first black player. Right. So it wasn't until my era that America began to strain at its parameters to permit blacks to begin to fulfill certain roles that we're now filling, that give young people, I think, a sense of what's available to them. Unlike myself, the stardom and the public response was a coincidence to something else. I've always been opposed to injustice, having been a victim of it. I've always been for women's rights, primarily because I saw what happened to my mother as a domestic and what happened to her as a woman. I've always been for people coming together, because I think a world not integrated is a world disintegrated with war and pain and stuff. So my role was fairly easy in terms of public acclaim. I just never set out for it. The public came to me. They made me theirs. What devastated me was the fact that it became international. I hadn't quite ever, certainly not, I didn't see it in America, let alone in Japan, France, Italy.
As outspoken as you have been over the years in saying what you believe, in other words, being, quote, political, expressing your views in public, and some performers have gotten in trouble doing that. Their careers have gotten in trouble. Yours didn't. How do you account for the fact that you have always come right out and said what you believed and wanted to say, and it hasn't had any adverse effect on your career at all?
I don't know that I really have all the answers. All I know is that unto thine own self be true. March to a drum beat that you believe in. And I think I share the company of that kind of philosophy with people like Alan Alda, who has been on earlier, Jane Fonda, Henry Fonda, Marlon Brando. I just think that the world at large is more embracing when you bring a truth, when you bring a sense of the glory and the celebration of mankind, than if you abstain. I'm sure there's some people who wouldn't hire me because of my political or social beliefs. But when I measure what my commitment must be to mankind, I don't think there's any question. There's no choice between freedom and employment or money. That's it.